I'm so excited today to have Ivan Vislavskiy on the podcast. Ivan's the CEO and co-founder of Comrade Digital Marketing Agency. He leads a respected digital marketing firm with prominent locations in Chicago, Miami, and Austin. Recognized for his visionary leadership, Ivan steers the company with a strategic focus that keeps it at the forefront of industry trends while consistently exceeding client expectations. With a rich portfolio boasting over 400 successful projects, and possesses a deep expertise in catalyzing significant client growth. His passion for creativity permeates the company's culture, promoting an environment where ambition and innovation flourish, enabling the development of pioneering in-house projects. Ivan, I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for being on the show.
Bill, thank you so much for having me. Once you went over my bio, I literally wanted to hire myself.
It's pretty impressive. And that's
Thank
really
you.
where I want to start today.
Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
I would love for you to share some of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey and your development as a leader. How did you get started?
Sure thing. I'll start all the way when I was 19, and I had an opportunity to move from Russia to US in pursuit of that American dream.
Nice.
Ever since I came to US, I had an opportunity to work in multiple marketing agencies in various roles. I started as a web designer. I then worked on development, both front and back. I was promoted to be a project manager. I handled staff of other specialists, and then I was promoted to other management roles. Eventually, I knew I'm gonna have my own business one day. So I was trying to soak up as much knowledge from the management layer on principles of how do you properly do HR, operations, finances, legal, hiring, and so on and so on. In 2008, together with my business partner, we started the agency. Initially, the first projects we worked on came from our network, marketing, web projects. Our goal was to provide stellar quality of the product. And that led us to sort of word of mouth that led us to other projects. And very quickly, we became extremely busy and we started hiring helpers. So that's when we had our first specialist, second specialist, third specialist. By the roughly around 2011, we already had three full-timers working for us. And the business was finally taken off. And we decided it was time for us to fully focus on the growth of the business. So the two of us quit our day jobs, went on to work for the agency or work on the agency rather, and we started growing from there. Since 2011, we grew our agency to about a size of 75, 80 folks across our 3 offices and our overseas location as well. And we're truly blessed to be where we are right now. We have very ambitious goals, obviously. And there's a lot that happened since 2011 until 2025.
Of course. I mean, I'm thinking during that time frame, you have COVID, something that demolished so many businesses and a whole lot of marketing agencies. Navigating through a season of growth and then encountering something that's completely out of your control. How did y'all navigate those days?
Well, I'll start out by saying that we've been a generalist agency since the inception of our company. But then about 5-6 years ago, we started niching down. And the two niches that we specifically picked were legal and home services. So legal, through the COVID time, really didn't change much because if it's a personal injury, you could still get it. Yeah. If there's a wrongful termination, you still need a lawyer.
That's true.
Different family matters that you still need to attend to. So lawyers were pretty much essential at the time of COVID. Now, home services was a completely different story. Obviously, there was a lot of, market was not moving. The houses were not really sold. So that definitely impacted this area of the business. But oh no, I think it all started out by us dipping maybe 10, 15%, losing some clients that were legacy clients that were not specifically represented in those two industries. So we freaked out for a second, but then little by little, it started normalizing. And with the additional funds being rolled out by government, we actually started flourishing. We started bringing more and more clients. And at the end of it all, I think we came out as a much stronger agency. We had an opportunity to improve our processes. We fully switched to a hybrid model. We weren't able to work from the office completely. A lot of good happened from it.
Yeah. Leading through difficult seasons like that can be really challenging because you can't always see around the corner. You don't know what's ahead. Were there times during that season where you felt like, man, I am not sure how to lead well through this?
I think, especially at the beginning, there was some doubt as to what to expect, and this uncertainty is what bothers me.
Yeah.
I'm confident in my leadership skills. I'm confident that I can lead my team well. And as a team, we can get to the place which we aspire to go to. But it was just that uncertainty that, difficult to understand. Where do we go from here? Are we going to exist as an agency? Are we going to exist as a humanity? Because as you remember, there's a lot of messaging, a lot of noise, specifically that particular part of the journey, right? COVID. There were other we started the business at 2008. It was a financial crisis.
Right.
So we started the business when in the peak of the first crisis, and we successfully navigated. We can say we navigated two crises at this point.
It's true. In the midst of that, innovation is one of your big values. What is it about innovation that really captivates you? How do you try to manifest that when you're serving your clients with what I described earlier as exceeding their expectations?
Absolutely. So when we started this agency, our mission was to help small businesses grow and achieve amazing results. We decided that our agency is not going to be just another marketing agency, but we will be truly ROI-focused agency. So our goal was to show transparently to our clients what kind of results our marketing campaigns are generating for our clients in the way of showing them how many marketing qualified leads we're generating, how many sales, what the conversion rate of it all is, and many other things, right? So innovation is definitely connected to our ability to generate the true ROI service to our clients, because with the innovation, we can save up some of the hours that we otherwise would spend if we do work manually, without automating some of the processes and so on. And we can pass that savings on to our clients.
I like that.
It was,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, it was also important to build innovation that will allow us to scale up quicker. Scale up in the way where we wouldn't have to add more bodies, more specialists as we grow as an agency and we serve more clients. So we're very excited about that. And for the last 2 years, we've been building up a lot of the internal projects and automations within our production department and many other departments, sales, internal marketing, and so on, that allow us to scale up pretty rapidly.
So talk about that for a minute, because scaling is a significant challenge for a lot of agencies and businesses. They got to a point of success because they're good at what they do, but scaling is a different skill set and it requires different thinking. What are some of the things that you've learned that have enabled your company, your agency, to scale to the degree that it has?
When we started the company as a small business, we were truly inspired by growth at all costs. This was our big desire. How do we add to the top, revenue as much as possible? How do we grow month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, without true understanding of what it means to the bottom line of our business? I guess the first challenge that we had, and first thing that helped us understand how to scale properly, is proper financials, truly understanding transparent financial reports as to what does it mean if we make a decision to hire someone or to make any changes in our business? What does it mean to our top line, bottom line, and scalability of our agency?
That's good.
This is something that we were missing at the beginning. Now, if we're designing a new service, if we're thinking to bring a new type of client, we're first running financial analysis to understand how profitable it's going to be for the business. How scalable is it going to be? Is it just a shiny object, or is it truly an opportunity for us to get to the next level of a thinking?
That's good.
So that was first. Second mistake, or I guess what we learned along the way that led us to scalability, was hiring the right talent. Again, it was connected to our limitations as a small business, not to be able to hire and retain A-type players, right? Because you just can't.
Yeah.
Your company is so small, and mostly when you're thinking to bring A-type players, they're looking for a lot more ambitious growth, which you don't have.
Yeah, that's true.
In most cases, we were okay with hiring mediocre talent, which led to a lot of mistakes, a lot of issues along the way. And you don't grow that by doing so. You can only grow when you have proper talent in the proper places that you can use as the building blocks in your foundation, right? Because as you scale up, let's say, when we started the agency, I was a specialist, then we had our first, let's say, 4 or 5 specialists. I became a manager. Then once we had more specialists and we had our first managers, I became manager of managers. So the managers that you're managing are the foundation of your business. If you don't have the right managers, then everything is going to crumble and you're not going to be able to scale up. And then,
yeah.
Bill, very quickly, the third pillar of our ability to scale was saying no to customers. In many cases, clients would come to us and say, hey, guys, you're doing SEO really, really well. We see results. Everything is working well. Can you also do so-and-so, let's say branding aspect? Or can you also run TV ads or help us with newspaper ads? Our desire to satisfy and please customers would usually lead to us saying, at the beginning, saying yes. And then in some cases, it would derail our relationship completely. So only later we realized what our true specialty is, and that saying no is totally okay, but saying it in the proper way, explaining that you're truly expert in so-and-so capacity and capabilities, you can do this probably better than anyone else. But outside of those capacities, I'm sorry, we can't provide this service. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed.
Was that difficult to turn down potential revenue?
It still is difficult.
Yeah.
We at the end of 2024, we designed what our ideal 2025 is going to look like. One of the things on that list was to let go some of our old legacy clients that no longer fit the criteria of good clients for us. And we executed on it so it's almost end of the quarter, and we already churned out. Well, it was a voluntarily churn, right? About 15% of the bad fitting clients were a little behind our right. And so it's a revenue, but it's a bad revenue. It stops us from scaling up. It actually puts constraints on our top talent. And we had to continually provide services to the clients in the way we're helping them as much, right? For instance, I'll give you an example. There was a really, really good e-commerce client. They were growing fantastically with us. But we made a conscious decision, and they've been with us for 5-6 years. We made a conscious decision to go after legal and home services. So e-commerce does not fit that criteria at all. If you want to continually provide better care and amazing ROI to your e-commerce clients, you still need to develop your expertise and your practice in that area. We cannot do this well enough in legal, home services, and e-commerce, which is radically different. So it was difficult. It is difficult, but we're sticking to our plan. And I think at the end of the day, we'll finally realize that it was a good thing to do.
I love that you made the distinction between good revenue and bad revenue, because I think for a lot of business owners, it's just revenue. And okay, if I've got to work longer or the team has to pivot and create custom stuff or custom processes or whatever, well, it's still revenue. But the cost, there is a cost to that kind of revenue. And I think what you and your team have done has been wise in saying, we're going to stay in our lane. We're going to do what we do at a world-class level, and we're going to say no to anything outside of that. That is rare. And I would say, based on almost 30 years of working with clients, that is something that I don't see very often. That type of single-minded focus. I believe that is a huge component of the success y'all have experienced.
No, that's true. That's why most of the businesses never step out from a threshold of $1 million, $2 million in top revenue. Just because you stay that focus on pleasing this one client or two clients or whatever many clients you're handling, it's not scalable at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. Building a team from just a handful of people, just you and your business partner at the beginning, and then adding a few team members and a few team members, and now dozens and dozens of people that are part of your business, you have to have learned some things about hiring along the way. And you've alluded to this and mentioned a few of these things. If you were to name the top one or two lessons that you've learned about hiring over these years, what would you say those one or two things are?
Really depends on who you're hiring. If you're hiring a manager or a specialist, that's to begin with. Truly understanding what the impact of their work is going to be to your company, right? And clearly understanding what they're going to be responsible for and what their KPIs are going to be. That's number one. Number two, you have to clearly understand what kind of talent you can afford. Larger agencies with larger financial budgets are able to afford a type player. So strive for the best that you can find for your money. Because the best that you can find will help you, once again, do things right. Especially if you're not an expert in this area, you definitely have to have an expertise. Now, if you're a smaller company and let's say the top talent is 2x than what you can afford, then do the other approach. Hire a good, promising candidate that can potentially grow and add a coaching layer to it. Hire a coach that can spend maybe an hour a week, 2 hours a week, and help them develop their own mentality, their own leadership skills, help them in the gaps that they're currently experiencing. But that's a far better way for you to develop that talent, have that talent to begin with, and then develop into potentially an A-type player. But then you gotta be sure that you can sustain that, right?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Transparency is from the beginning, explaining what the ideal relationship might look like, right? Because the relationship between you and team member, we don't call them employees, by the way. We call them team members. We call them our specialists and managers and so on. The true relationship is like true business, true personal partners. Let's say husband and wife, right? You have to find your compromises. You have to find win-win situations, but it's all designed for the greater good of the company and that individual. So ideally, you want the company to grow with their help, but you also want that individual to grow with your help. And if you combine that all, if you can clearly explain it to the individual you're hiring that it's the best fit, then no doubt they'll stick around and they'll help you grow and they'll do it properly.
I love that. And I love that you call them team members and not just employees. I think words matter. And I think you're being very judicious with your words there in helping people understand that they are part of a team, that they contribute to something larger than just themselves.
Yep. Team aspect is one of our core values. So we stick to it. But I'm glad you actually singled out my way of calling them. We're actually also we don't call them doers as well. We call them specialists. Because in our eyes, they specialize into something, right? Like they truly create something as opposed to they just do something. So I think in their eyes, there's a tremendous amount of respect we have for them.
I think that's what increases retention. I think when people feel seen and heard and known and valued in a company or in an agency or on a team, if they feel seen and known and heard and valued, they lean in and they stick around. Has that been your experience?
And I'll add one more thing. Really good culture.
Mm.
We have part of our interview process is a cultural interview where the key members of our team interview an individual that we're hiring to ensure that there's a cultural fit. Because if there's not, it's really, really easy to destroy the culture you've built.
Yes.
And our team members, and I'm truly glad to see it. I moved from Chicago, where our headquarters is, and most of our team members are there. They're coming to the office. It's still a hybrid situation right now, post COVID and so on. But I'm truly glad to see how well they enjoy being among themselves. We actually don't have any restrictions or limitations or even any rules on how many days they have to be in the office. They designed their own culture from now on, because we built that pillar, we built that foundation for them. So we now carefully preserve this culture. So sometimes, and I actually, I read a book working backwards about Amazon principles not too long ago. And I really, really like one of their principles, which is say no to an individual that's potentially a really good fit on the skill level, but a bad fit on the cultural level.
Yes. Well,
And
I think
level up.
Your job as the owner is to protect the culture. You guide the culture and you protect the culture. No one else is going to do that for you. You can't delegate that. You either have a culture that you created on purpose, or you have a culture that you did not mean to have. In either case, every team, every business has a culture. It sounds like you have been very intentional about crafting the culture that you have, and you have not stopped learning how to make it better. Even reading, like you're describing about the Amazon principles.
Absolutely. My desire from the beginning of this, when we started this company, was to build the culture, was to build a company where I would enjoy going to every day. I would enjoy starting my day thinking that I can achieve a lot of great things. I truly enjoy my team. I truly enjoy what we do and where we're going. And that's why the culture was just my foundation, my personal foundation of who I am as an individual. Because otherwise, you're not going to feel like you're fitting in within this culture. Yeah. The next level, although, is when we get bigger, stronger, and once we start focusing on other things that we have plans within the next 3 years, eventually we'll have to bring a CEO to the agency that will be able to take some of the responsibilities from me. And what would be interesting is, would this CEO fit the culture that we're looking for, or would the CEO start transforming it? And that's it's going to be a very interesting part of the journey, but it's still down around.
It is, but the fact that you're already thinking about it really speaks volumes into your visionary leadership. That you're not just focused on what today is. You're not just reacting to the circumstances of today. You're already proactively thinking about the next chapter and the next one. Have you always been like that?
For the most part. My business partner and I were very ambitious. We have goals for the next 10 years. We have a big vision. We have big goals for 5 years, 3 years, and then this year as well. So part of this big ambition comes with, what do we need to do? How can we be ahead of the game, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, so that we can scale up faster? And it's not always working that way, unfortunately. Sometimes you have to experience some challenge in order to grow as well. That's part of the journey too.
It is. That's right.
But we have coaches and advisors that help us in our growth as well. We're constantly asking them, especially believable people that done that been there, where we, aiming to achieve, like, what would you do in our place? How would you avoid the challenges? How would you grow faster? That helps us to sort of be ahead of ourselves.
Well, that leads into my next question. Your company needs you to lead at a higher level today than it did 5 years ago. And that same thing is going to be true 5 years from now. How do you stay on top of your game How do you level up with the new leadership skills that your team, your business, your clients are going to need you to have? You've mentioned coaches, you've mentioned advisors. Are there other ways that you are focused on personally?
Yeah. There's obviously tremendous volume of information you can gather from podcasts, webinars, business books, and that's what I've been doing, obviously. But not only when you listen to podcasts, but also when you've been interviewed on a podcast, and it's your ability to share your story, to sort of think about, what led you to a certain success, and, outline next steps, or even hear some next level ideas and so on. But what also I started doing recently, I organized my own management course. I realized that many of our managers that sort of became managers organically, they were specialists initially, then they were promoted to be managers because someone had to manage the teams and they were the best fit for it, but they never had any official training. So they lacked that foundation. So I organized a management course. I started from the very beginning. What is our true foundation? What are our core values? What are the key success factors for each of our departments? What are the KPIs for each department? Do we measure them or do we not? What does our process look like? We broke down the process into small micro steps and so on. And do we have templates? Do we have SOPs for each part of the process? And do we have key success criteria for each deliverable? And if not, then we created a list, with priorities on what we need to work on and so on. And by organizing this course, it actually taught me a lot, because I recognized that there are a lot of gaps within the way how we raise our managers to the next level, and in my own leadership skills as well, where I did not have a clear understanding of a few things, which I had to learn, which I had to consult with the advisors that advising us with, and it was truly transformational for me.
I love that. I love the intentionality of that and how you are not afraid to dive that far in and make it better at that level, because you know that's going to rise to the level of your success. You are consistently growing. This is something that I think has probably been true of you your whole life. You've just consistently been learning and growing and asking, how do I become the leader that I know I'm capable of?
That's my goal, certainly.
Has there been a book that's made a big difference in your journey as you do that?
Quite a few. I think I definitely grab bits of information from different books that I read, and I read all the time. My absolute favorite would be Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
Jocko Willink, yeah.
It was amazing book, truly transformational for me. Let's see, Pursuit of Happiness, about Zappos story.
It's a great book.
Amazing read as well. Working Backwards that I mentioned recently was a big eye-opener for me. Definitely a few really, really interesting concepts. Let's see what else comes to mind. Profit First, of course, I can't forget this one.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually reread the second edition of the book. I read the first edition years and years and years ago, and it didn't quite apply to our business as much as it applies now. So it was interesting. Probably a few others, but we can stop here.
That's fantastic. And I think that illustrates, so many different things. I mean, one, that you never settle. You want to continue learning. You want to continue growing. I'm sorry, Ivan, the dog's barking. Give me just a second.
No problem. That happens.
Usually my family is home and they handle this, and everyone is gone today. So
I get it.
It's
happens all the time. You know what's my favorite? When you have an episode recording or very important interview and someone storms in your office like they really need something from this place. Like, seriously, I'm having a conversation here.
Exactly.
Totally can relate to that.
My goodness.
Well, it looks like your dogs are having a good time.
Oh, she's having a blast. She's having a blast. All right. Okay, let's give it a shot again. So, just listening to that list of books that you shared, it illustrates that not only are you a continual learner, but that sometimes you read something that is not for you yet. It's not time for that yet. Like you said about Profit First, but you go back And you're like, hey, I think this is going to be something that's going to help me in this season that I didn't need previously. And I think that teachable spirit has been a huge component to your success as well. Would you agree?
100%. Unfortunately, I didn't do it earlier, but I started actually recording. I have a journal of all the little thoughts that I, have from reading the book, and I start recording them in my journal. So once in a while, I go through my journal and I review the notes, because sometimes you would have a note that was not important back then, but in certain part of the journey, it finally hits you like, oh, that's what they meant. This is why they said so and so. So I think not only reading the books is important, but also rereading them and reevaluating the various concepts and so on. But then on the concept of continuous education, books definitely help, but also coaches. I think coaches are extremely important. And finding that next coach that can get you to the next level.
Yeah.
Super important. In my early days, I hired my first coach who was exceptional. I mean, it was, eye-opening for me. But if I would talk to this coach today, I would say, there's absolutely nothing new that he can, bring to me, because I just outgrew that mentality, outgrew the coach. So you constantly have to level up with the next level of people that can help you get to the next level. I think that's extremely important.
And I think it illustrates the fact that we do operate in seasons. In some seasons, certain coaches or certain books or certain learning experiences are exactly what we need. And in some seasons, we have grown beyond that. And that's fantastic. I've been coaching leaders for almost 30 years. My goal is not to have clients that stay with me for 30 years. Everything has a season. And my goal is to add as much value to clients as I can during the season that people are with me. My average client's with me for about 34 months right now, right? And during that season, we're going to add value as much as possible. But I don't expect that season to last forever, because there's going to be a next chapter. And I think that's important for the leaders who are listening. Understand the season that you're in matters. The choices that you make in that season need to be focused on where you are and where you want to go. That's what I hear in your story.
Bill, I love how you put it. I'm actually going to record it in my little journal, but it's exactly like you said. Seasons truly matter, and depending on what season you're in, the perception of the information may completely change. So understanding that definitely matters.
I mean, I could continue talking to you for another hour. There's just so much wisdom that you have shared today from your journey so far. And I'm so grateful to you for sharing it so freely with our audience. I know people are going to want to continue to learn from you and stay connected to you. What is the best way for them to do that?
Definitely. You can email me, and actually, the best way to connect with me would truly be, I totally forgot, but I now have my own personal website, which is ivanvislavskiy.com. It was just recently built by my marketing team, because I was getting a lot of this type of questions, and it was not appropriate to lead them to my company website, because whatever you have a question about, business that you're in and you need some marketing help, or if you have some questions about business personal development and development as a leader, definitely hit me up. Let me know. I'll be happy to help.
We will have that link in the show notes. Ivan, thank you again for your time today.
Thank you.
And for your generosity.
Really appreciate this conversation. Definitely enjoyed it. I think we had a lot of truly transformational discussions, and hopefully it'll be beneficial for someone.
Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach to help you intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.